Cheers, guys. Thanks for coming. I think from my point of view, I've had a few conversations already. Anyway, we've had the conversations with the setup of the reserves and that 3-club vision, which I'm really excited about as to how it could work to the benefit of the first team. And I think it's something that's been missing for quite a bit of time. As a player, this was a place that, when they came calling from a management perspective, it was too difficult to say no to. The last 2 years at Bev have been fantastic. You know, it was my opportunity to pave my own path and do things the way that I wanted to do, and I've learned an awful lot from 2 or 3 managers that I've played under, that I've seen the good side of what I wanted to replicate, and I've played under 2 or 3 not so good that I thought I won't do things that way as well. And going to Bev was my chance, where I thought, you know what, I can showcase what we can do. I probably wasn't going to get an opportunity at Northern Counties level because of the experience side of things. So I took that. I took that and thought we'll roll with it, and I'll give the club, you know, a bit of time to be able to understand what I want to achieve, but also what I believe success would look like. And you know, fast forward 2 years, we've got that club into Northern Counties football, which they've been craving for quite some time. There was an awful lot of work that went on in the background, but my remit was to make sure that the club was sound on the football pitch. And the remit was, from day one, you know, 2 years to have a Northern Counties football squad ready to play. And I believe that we leave them in a really, really positive position, you know, from a squad perspective. You know, Pete's already semi introduced Ron. Ron's been integral to an awful lot of what we've done at Bev in the past few years. Dedicated goalkeeper coach that's worked with 2 first-team goalkeepers that we could have chose from, to be honest. And over the lifespan of our time at Bev, we've conceded 3 more goals than games played. You know, so the numbers were outstanding. And I think everything that we did at Bev, it was my philosophy and the environment that we wanted to create that gave those lads an opportunity to showcase what they could do at the level that they was at. And we got to a point where boys bought into that rather than the football club or rather than the money, you know, because we had lads that were paying for the pleasure for one point, and we had lads that were being paid at a Northern Counties level that dropped down to play because they bought into what we was trying to achieve. So at Bev, you know, I'm really honoured as to where the club's got themselves to, and I was really honoured to get that opportunity to run things there. And I think we've proved that the environment that we set gave the club a real sound footing to move on now. You know, what they do with the new management team or what they do with the squad that we assembled is totally up to them. I'd like to think that, you know, if this opportunity didn't come along, it was a 2 or 3 man change to be competitive in that league. And I think that, you know, I take a lot of credit out of that and a lot of honour that we got that club really producing the way that they did at an amateur level. You know, it was a semi-professional club at amateur level, and my mentality won't change. You know, I look at the step up is big. I don't think there's many that have probably made such a big leap in leagues, but my mentality won't change. The professionalism of what we do won't change, and actually I think it will give this club a bounce from where it's been in the last few years in the structure of what we're going to bring, the relentlessness at the way that myself and Ron and Adi, my assistant, who obviously you can't meet today, how relentless we will be in the way that we train and the way that we do things and the intensity of the way that we do things. There'll be a bounce regardless of anything else. You know, we're going to talk about players and movement and things like that. But for me, the start point is the structure and the environment that's created. And already through speaking to the boys that I have done, you know, they've got a little buzz about them about what we're going to bring in, and how that environment is going to be set for them to be able to go out, play football and concentrate on that. And we'll be able to hold them to account in the way that we do things and how professional we are. So that's where it starts for me. The conversations with the other guys through the juniors and the Rovers team. I think there's going to be opportunity if we get that right for lads to come through, for lads to come train, and for me to give some of my time back as well to come through here and train some of those boys now that we've worked out logistically what times and days these lads train. I'm willing to make sure that I can give up a bit of my time so that the whole ethos of the club is right. You know, those boys know that this is how we train at a first team level, and this is the intensity of it, this is what I expect, and I won't change that. So, you know, if I come down and I watch a session and we're good enough, you get the opportunity to train. The difference with that being, and I think, you know, you guys might ask a few of these questions now anyway, the level changes in leagues is huge. It is big, don't get me wrong, it is big. But there's a number of boys that I would have never had the opportunity to see if I don't put myself out there, you know, with those junior teams. So I'm willing to do that. And if it may be a 2-year plan, again, you know, where these boys get the opportunities to train with us on a Tuesday, I come through and train with them on a Monday. First team night is very, very much geared around the Thursday, you know, shape, you know, the type of work that we would do for a game day on a Saturday. And if they get themselves into being around that scenario, they're being around the first team, you know, so it'll be a work in progress. And there'll be some of these boys that I've never experienced before, and they'll get a chance with me, they'll get a chance. And I think, you know, when I think back to my playing days, I said to the boys in there was always a buzz around the place when, you know, there was a Jake Day, James Faulkner, and Archie Brown. You know, when these boys took their chances and they came and played, there was a buzz around the stands because it's a local lad that was playing for the local team. So that's going to be the case. If they're good enough, they'll have a chance to showcase that with me. But other than that, I mean, what I want to do is I'll field your questions. I'll answer them as best as I can. I think the main crux of my message is all geared around environment. We've been extremely professional at Bev, and there's been occasions where, you know, we've had the piss taken out of us at the level that we've been at, that we've got a management team of 3, we've got a medical team of 2, and what's going on, why are you doing the things that you do? But it was all geared around the boys having the best environment for them to play football. And again, like I say, from a mentality point of view, that won't change. My start point is that we need to get that right, and we've got that right already with the appointments. You know, Ron coming in for me was a massive thing. He's worked with Hitchy previously. We gave Hitchy the opportunity in lockdown when your football was shut and we could still play on at step 7 to train and to keep fit, and he took that opportunity, and from my point of view that was huge because there's buy-in there already. You know, you don't forget those things, and it's something, you know, the kid, in my opinion, has massively overachieved in the past few years with what he's had to contend with, how he's played, and he's done all that with no support of a dedicated goalkeeping coach. So the future in that respect is going to be bright. I would love to bring somebody else in to push Hitchy as well, and we're already on with that. Even from a point of view of training and how that looks, and, you know, speaking to the guys at the reserves, and we'd love to get that involved as well. So environment's key, number 1 priority for me, and when we get that right, the buying of the lads is the second thing. And the conversations that I've had already with the boys that are committed and the boys that will be staying, they can feel what change that will bring to the whole, you know, training setup, the intensity of that, and the whole club feel of the management team and the medical team that will come in alongside that. So from my point of view, that was numero uno. We had to get that right, and we've worked tirelessly for the last few weeks to make sure that the people that we've brought in are going to be right, and focus now turns to players and having those conversations as well. But I'll open the floor and just, you know, field questions, anything that anybody's got or they want clarity on. I'll do my best to answer from you guys.
Come on, Norman. Come on, Norman. You always have plenty of questions during the season. Come on.
Yeah, I'm interested in the back 4. How we're looking at that. Because like when we had Jazz, we looked good. He organised the back 4. He got it working together. Halfway without Jazz, we were all over the shop, and teams opened us up like a can of beans. You know, have we got plans to strengthen the back 4? Or?
Yeah, I'm going to be brutally honest. I'm not going to mention a name today because we can't legally sign anybody until the 1st of July.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not going to mention anybody's names.
Oh, go on.
But is it can't go to there? You don't want to film it. So I'm not going to mention names in that respect, but strengthening will be happening. I've already got two boys that have committed from the league above. So we've got 2 boys that have committed from the league above. One of those plays centre half, and that was a big thing for me. I've looked at the club. I was in a fortunate position last year through COVID. Again, I've mentioned it to the guys in the office. There was a lot of teams that called games off against us last year when they were at full strength because they had an opportunity to do so, and that gave me an opportunity to watch football games. And more often than not, I was down here, and some of the things that I saw in relation to fitness concerned me. Some of the things that I saw in relation to game plan concerned me. And I think, again, I won't bash what's gone on in previous management or anything like that. This is a new chapter and we're going to start fresh. But the way we train will be very intense, very, very intense. And it was one of the things that, if boys didn't buy into that at Bev Town, I know it's a different level and the quality of the player is different. That was one of the biggest things for me. If you can't even be fit enough to play, it was a struggle.
Quite a bit here.
Yeah.
We went to every away game last year, and we see what it's like. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot tougher than your Beverley Towns, believe me.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that the calibre of player that we've got now here, and the calibre of player that we bring in, is going to be for that level. What I'm talking about here is the actual mentality of the way we do things.
I like that.
So the boys have to buy into that, and it's my minimum requirement. So we talk, quality has to speak for itself, okay? And quality will get you in the door, but attitude keeps you in the door, keeps you in the building. And one of the things that me and Ron talked about religiously last year was effort, commitment, and desire are my 3 non-negotiables. And they're the things that the boys in my camp have to have that as a minimum requirement. The quality comes as a prerequisite. All right, you've got to have the quality to get yourself into this level, but the buy-in is the way that we do things. I looked at games like Brighouse Town, and I looked at the quality of squads being not too dissimilar, but man, were they miles ahead in fitness, and man, were they miles ahead in a game plan and how drilled they were. And to me, that's where we have to be held to account from a training capacity.
I've got to say, Tom, in a few games, Peter was there. You could see the fitness levels of other clubs.
Yeah.
They just look like old men on that pitch.
Yeah.
We did see it. It does happen.
And
I agree with what you're saying.
I said to Pete, one of my non-negotiables is the way that we train. So yes, I understand that we'll have a number of Tuesday fixtures and things like that, but I need to know that I've got a Tuesday and a Thursday booked in to train for 90 minutes minimum, because what we do in training is, I'll be brutally honest, I think we're above our level where we were with Bev, and we'll increase that with the likes of my assistant manager, Eddie Costello, UEFA licensed coach, has coached at professional clubs in Sweden. He's local, he's come back, he's retired from the police, and he's going to give an awful lot into what I'll give him my ethos as to what we want to achieve, and he's going to design the sessions around what we need in relation to getting into certain areas of the pitch and improvement, and then also getting into the minds of what these boys need to have to succeed around me, because you won't get away with being average this year. Honestly, and I've seen some of the stuff that's been already talked about on the Talk of the Town groups, and an experience of a player that's left the club. If they're not going to buy into my way of doing things, I don't mind losing that, because I can reinvest that budget into players that I know have bought into what we want to achieve.
Well, like these players that have gone, I've said, you must have something in mind to replace them anyhow.
Absolutely. And to be honest, normally when I look at those fine margins, I'm hugely into stats and analysis, and I've used Brighouse as an example there. Brighouse finished 8th, 9th in the league. We finished 15th. The margins in that, I put down to, the effort and commitment, desire, the fitness. I put it down to
The budget was the same between us and them.
I put it down to how drilled the boys are and the game plan around that. You know, so those margins can become even finer when these boys get themselves into an environment where they are drilled and they understand what I want to achieve and what they have to do to be a part of that. And everybody that I've spoke to already in the current playing squad and the boys that I've already spoke to that are coming in, they buy into that. They buy into that as that minimum requirement.
And that's what you've got to get, haven't you? You've got to get the right atmosphere within the squad, haven't you?
Absolutely, and I think some of the things that frustrated people, and you know, this will be music to Pete's ears, but we've already had this conversation. You know, the disparity between highest paid player and lowest paid player last year was embarrassing, in my opinion. And all that it does, all that does, in my opinion, is it creates friction in a squad. It creates friction in a squad. And there was a number of boys that I watch out there, and I think, God, the output that you've given for what you've been paid for is insane. It is insane. You know, and what I'm hopefully going to do is bring that barometer closer and make sure that every they're not going to know what each other get paid. You know, it's going to be one of those. But if you know that the skipper's on X amount of money and you can benchmark yourself from there, if you've got to have a conversation with me because you think you're being underpaid or whatever it may be, then we'll have that conversation. But we're going to make sure that the margins are closer, because if they're not, the disparity in the squad is ridiculous. And that's one thing that I won't contend with. You know, we had it last year. Where there was a bit of disgruntledness amongst players, and I'm happy to get rid of players if they don't buy into that. And I've had that conversation before. You know, at Bev Town, I released my skipper, who was my highest paid, scored the most amount of goals the season before, and there was, you know, questions galore as to why it happened. But it was a pure environment thing. It was a pure mentality thing, and the bounce that the boys got out of the back of that. You know, because the changing room was tighter, we went on the runs that we went on. You know, so environment's key to me. And I feel like I know you boys well enough as well, that if we get a side out there that are doing the right things for the right reasons and the quality levels are high enough, you know, that's good enough for me. There is teams in this league that have got ridiculous budgets. There's teams in the league below that I'm competing with on players. You know, and again, to me, that blows my mind. But I need to make sure that, one, he's not been held to ransom, the club's not been held to ransom, and the boys that we do bring in are doing things for the right reasons. You know, and there's a number of occasions where I've had conversations with boys and said, listen, you've got to want to play at your highest level. For me, you've got to want to play at your highest level. That sounds a little bit counterintuitive to what I was just saying about boys coming to Beverley and dropping down to play for me, but they were buying into that environment, in my opinion. I will never understand somebody deciding to play at a lower level for the same money. I won't understand that. Now, if they decide that they want to go because they're getting an offer that they can't refuse, I'll shake their hand and wish them all the best and understand that we can reinvest that into somebody that buys into our philosophy and what we want to achieve moving forward.
Can I ask a question? Whereabouts are you going to do your training? Is it all going to be in Hull, your training, or is it going to be right here?
So part of the conversation before the fans forum was to try and solidify relationships with the full club, a full club mentality. I'm not going to get away from the fact that 95+% of our lads are going to be Hull based, and if they're not Hull based, they're very, very close to being Hull based. So it makes logistical sense in every respect to train in Hull. Now, having conversations with the reserve guys and the development of the younger lads coming through, we created a superb structure at Bev where when we came into the club, the academy was non-existent, so the development of the younger lads was non-existent. The reserves might as well have been called Beverley Rovers because there was no distinction between both teams, you know, crossing over. And what I wanted and what Ron wanted was to make sure that there was a conveyor belt and a pathway for those boys to work their way through. So I've taken that scenario to the guys at Rovers and said, look, I want to do something similar. And what I can foresee happening is that if we are on the right page, I religiously had 3 or 4 lads every Tuesday train from the under-18s at Beverley, who came and trained with the first team. And what they did in that scenario was they got used to the way we did things. They got used to the intensity and the change in environment. And if they weren't good enough, I said, he needs a bit more time. You know, but if 3 or 4 of those boys were good enough, there was around the first team environment. And what tended to happen then was when we dealt with our match day preparations on Thursdays, our shape work and whatever it may be, the boys that were trained with me on a Tuesday from the under-18s trained with the reserves on a Thursday. So that the pathway through was starting to happen. And a number of those boys signed for the reserves and played reserve team games towards the back end of the season. And the scenario that I've just given the reserve team manager there is that come the last 5-6 games of the first team season at Beverley last year, we had a goalkeeper that started in the academy, in the county leagues, worked his way up through the reserves to the first team. We had a centre who was 19. We had a centre half who started in the reserves, ended the season with the first team and quite frankly was undroppable, who was 20. And we had a striker who started the season with the reserves. We had a striker who snapped his ACL and had surgery, and we brought in the reserve team striker, and he scored 20 goals in 21 games. And the whole idea was that the pathway through was seamless for them. So they had an opportunity. I'm not saying that they was all ready to play. There was a very different dynamic at Beverley where the first team played in the Humber Prem and the reserve team played in the Humber Prem 1. So, you know, the leap between leagues is very different. And I've been really honest about that with those conversations that we've had. From Humber Prem 1 to Northern Premier League football is monumental. It's a big jump. So the idea is that these boys are going to get a chance. They're going to get a chance to train. They're going to get a chance to understand how intense it would be at that level. And that can continue for a year without having a first team appearance, in my opinion. But they're going to get used to what that looks like. The relationship for me is that I will be able to see boys that I wouldn't have experienced previously. You know, so the connection with the county league team, the under-18s, the Jackdaws, everything about it gives me an opportunity to see lads that I would never have seen. And I'm open to giving them boys opportunities to train. Now, if they come in and train and they do things intensely well and they're slotting seamlessly, why would we not progress them? Because, you know, from the point of view of that 3-team vision, if we can have a lad that's worked his way through the junior leagues, played for Brid Rovers and gets himself on that pitch out there, you know, that whole process is achievement, in my opinion. But that will take time. That's going to take time because the jump is huge. You know, if they've never played that type of football before, the jump is going to be big. But I'm open to it. I'm open to that.
Any more? David?
For the sake of clarity, can you name the players that are definitely leaving from last year?
So Brett's obviously left at present. Pete Davidson's already left, and Danielle's already left. I had a really good conversation with Danny. I wanted to keep Danny, and Danny bought into what I wanted to do and the environment that I wanted to set here. It was a strange dynamic for Danny because I went into the conversation with him saying, I'll be brutally honest, if your level of commitment is what it was last year, I would struggle with that, because I can't expect my squad of players to intensely buy into what we do on a Tuesday and a Thursday. If I don't get that from you, I can't expect it from everybody. So it's a collective buy-in. Now his circumstances have changed, his job's changed and he's available, and that was music to my ears. What that then did for Danny was it opened up to him an opportunity to speak to other clubs. So he was really honest with me, and he said that I've never had this opportunity before, and Tomo, I really appreciate what you've said, because every club worth his salt at this level said exactly the same to me last year. When I said I couldn't commit to training or I couldn't commit to Tuesday games, they wouldn't take me. So you actually saying that, you know, I know you're doing things right. The flip side of it is it's given him an opportunity to talk to other clubs. He's decided that because he's got that opportunity to talk to other clubs, he's going to take it and he's going to look elsewhere. There's no bridges that have been burnt either way with Danny. I really like Danny, and I think he would do very well for us this year. So we've left that in very good ground. And if anything changes, Danny will be welcome back in that respect.
I'll just add to that because first thing I knew about it was Dom sent me a message. It's on social media, Danny Earls left, so I rang him up straight away, and basically he said, for 8 years now while I've been in the Navy, I've just had to play for teams who would accept that I can't train and what have you, so I've had to play at a low level. He said, now I've got the opportunity after 8 years to try and push myself to the highest level that I can play at. And I said to him, I think he can play at high level. He said, for instance, he'd been speaking to Nantwich Town, who were in the division above us, because a couple of his mates out of the Navy had joined them. So it was more, because I said to him, if you want, I'll look at giving you more money, just to see what he would say. And he said, it's not the money. He said, I want to play at a higher level. Obviously, the higher level he played, the more money you get. But he is leaving on decent terms, and I don't think there's anything that even Brett could have done to convince him to stay. And let's be right, I was paying him good money to play one game a week even when we had two. So the club has been very, very fair to him. But then having said that, he kept us in this division. So that's just one of those things that we need to try and replace. But at least, you know, he's left on good terms. And if it doesn't work out, he'll always, I would think, consider coming back here.
Yeah, and that was the thought process with that, having that conversation. And I've been really open and transparent with everybody that I've spoke to. There'll be one more. There will be one more that leaves, and that will come out. But again, for me, it's ultimate buy-in. What Pete's just said about Danny wanting to push himself, you know, go do it. And if you can earn that money and you can earn it at a high level, absolutely be our guest. I will reinvest that money into the right person. The other one that will be going, that we will find out shortly, I'm sure that's going, is making a drop down, you know. And if that's right for him and it's right for his circumstance and his family or whatever that looks like, then that's fine. Okay, my non-negotiables that you've got to buy in to what we're doing, and I won't be held to ransom. We've had conversations about, you know, what budget looks like and what's right for this club. Everybody that buys into that and the environment that we're going to create will benefit. The whole club ethos will benefit from it.
Tom, will you be playing?
I won't be playing. No, I'll save us that embarrassment. No, I won't be playing.
Sorry, with someone else asking. It's very difficult, I would imagine, as a manager, to keep good players on the bench. How would you deal with players who are good enough but are not taking their place where they want to be, which is playing the game they love? How do you keep them happy?
That's an unbelievably great situation to be in, and I love that. Honestly, I love that, because as I've said throughout today, I'm open, transparent and honest, and boys will know why they are or aren't playing. Boys will know if there's a circumstance in a game as to why they're taken off, or whatever that looks like. And there's different circumstances and different situations in games that will make us choose the team that we choose, or choose the formation that we choose. The personnel slots into that. I think everybody just has to understand that there's going to be times when we go a different way to what they expect, or there will be times where we make changes to benefit the team, not the individual. And I know I'm going to start sounding like a broken record, but if they buy into that environment and they know what we're trying to achieve as a bigger picture, I would expect that we shouldn't have too many problems with that. Again, you know, I can use examples of Beverley, where we had to do very similar things, and you know, we had players that were unused subs that would have got in any other team in that league, you know, but they were with us for the right reasons, and we was able to change personnel because everybody that trained, did it relentlessly, did it intensely, that were fit enough to play. And I believe that the environment that we create with the players that we've got, they should all technically be good enough for wherever it is that they're playing. So it will be one of two reasons, to be honest. It will be personnel from a point of view of a team that we're playing, that we would need to change, or it will be form. You know, if somebody was at the absolute peak that they need to be week in, week out, they wouldn't be here. They wouldn't be here. And that was the same conversation that I had with lads at Beverley. You know, if you were any better, you wouldn't be here. There'd be teams in the Northern Counties League that would pick you up because we've been so successful. So form is a big thing, and confidence is a big thing. I like to think that we instill quite a lot of confidence in these lads in the way that we train and the way that we drill them, and that just exudes throughout the full squad. So yes, there's going to be people that will be unhappy. Yes, there's going to be people that don't play as much game time as they would like to, but as a collective buy-in to club, you know, that's going to have to happen.
How did you used to feel when you were substituting in your earlier career?
I didn't get substituted very often. I don't. I think it's one of those where, like I say, honesty in the message is key. You know, if somebody's not being good enough, they need to know. They would need to know. And I think we would have a training regime where these boys would have to do a little bit more. You know, so if we came into a scenario where somebody had been substituted for mistakes, and we work on them and we drill them and we work into scenarios at training to get those out of those boys. If those mistakes continue to happen, they're the recurring errors at that point. You know, we really need to have a think about, you know, is that a technical problem rather than anything else? So I would just have to be open and transparent and honest with the messaging, you know, as to why players have been substituted or not selected. You know, I would love to think that we're going to be in a scenario where we have a full bench and we have boys that are going down to the reserve team, you know, and you've got to show me something a little bit more to get yourself onto that bench. You've got to show me a little bit more to not be an unused sub. You've got to do everything out on the pitch to make sure that you're not coming off. And that was the scenario that we had at Bev. You know, we had 2 or 3 lads that had to go down to the reserves every week. They still trained with us Tuesday and Thursday. And if scenario changed, they got their opportunity. And if a lad got a shirt, it's up to you. You know, if you buy in and you do things right, you buy into the mentality that we're trying to run through the whole club here, it's then over to you. Make yourself undroppable.
One thing I've noticed, and not criticising Ridtown, when we've seen them play other teams tend to have maybe 3 captains on the field, if you understand what I mean.
Yep.
Whereas what I've noticed with Rid is we don't have the people, or we don't hear it from the sidelines anyway.
Yep.
Push, you know, get in. If you understand what I mean, is that?
No, I
in your ethos to
yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from. I think I personally was very vocal. I was always very vocal. I like my defenders to be very vocal, specifically my centre halves to be very vocal. And the way that I've played over the past few years, I've changed my own sort of ethos on playing style, and I've had a single or a double pivot in front of the back 4, which again is either my captain or my most vocal player. And I think that's got to come from within. You're never gonna get a player that's not that way inclined to be vocal.
No, I understand.
You know,
other teams seem to have like 3 of those players who were organising on the pitch itself.
Yeah, yeah.
Not criticism of the club, but we've seen in the last few years to lack that.
Yeah, and I think that again comes down to sort of these 3 things that I really want to get right, that in my opinion went right last year, is the fitness levels, the game plan, and how drilled these boys are, because you can't hold anybody to account when you don't know what you're doing, or you don't know what you've been told to do, or you don't know what the game plan is. You know, and Ronald back up, I was uber organised with how we did those types of things. And if there was any occasion last year where somebody didn't stick to the game plan, we'd go in at half time, I'd rip the sheets off the wall that's got all the information on and ask somebody to tell me what their job was. And if they couldn't tell me, there was an issue there, because they were drilled before the game as to know what their jobs were and what their roles and responsibilities were. So one, I think that does come from management. It really does, because I can't hold anybody to account if I'm not giving them the tools and the information that they require. The flip side of that is that you will naturally get certain lads that will do that, that will take the mantle and they'll take the captaincy and they'll take the vocal side of it. Don't worry about the boys that don't, because they're a different kettle of fish. You know, I think Pete's mentioned it a few times in the past. Tom Flem was the quietest player I've ever played with in my life. But he led by example. He did things right in the way that he played football. He didn't say anything to anybody on the football pitch, but he did things right in the way that he conducted himself as a football player. And if players do that, I've got no problems whatsoever. I love my centre half to be vocal, and I would love that pivot, whoever that would be, to be vocal. But understand that it comes from me. The way that they will be drilled in respect of the roles and responsibilities, that comes from me, and I can't hold them to account if we've not done that ourselves. So that again is going to be one of those non-negotiables, and then we will work on that game plan. You know, we will work on that. If it doesn't go to plan, what do we change? You know, if a team sets up a different way to the way we expect them, what was plan B going to be? You know, and the boys will know that because we'll do it right. So the vocal side of it, yes, I like certain players to be vocal. Don't worry about the ones that aren't, because I guarantee they'll be drilled better.
Last year we found out that there are 2 wide men. Our teams who had played here always had 2 wide men, and them 2 wide men were pretty fast. Now, we never seem to have wide men. We had now and again, yeah. Teams got come down, so these blokes who were really speedy on wings. And we never had that.
Well, again, I think that sort of the shape of the team is determined by the personnel that's been put into that squad. I've got a way that I want to do things, and I've got a shape that I would like to play that I think would be successful at this level. I can't decide whether or not we do that until I get the personnel.
Yeah.
You know, personnel is what's most important. So my recruitment, at the moment, and the types of boys that I'm having conversations with, is to make sure that, if possible, I can have the shape that I think will be successful at this level. And for us as a football club, if we can make that fine margin between 8th and 9th and 15th that ever smaller, the club starts looking up rather than looking down. You know,
last year I found out that, and a lot of people here think we give the ball away a lot last year.
Yeah.
Heck of a lot. Mm-hmm. Especially in his own areas.
Yeah.
You know, that was regular with that.
I don't want to talk about past regimes too much or anything like that, but the way we train, it will be ridiculously intense, and there's a huge emphasis on Ron goes away and does his work with the goalkeepers. He does that personally. It's stuff that I wouldn't know how to do. You know, he's got the skill set to do it. Do that for 45 minutes, and then we bring the boys together and we have a shooting scenario, shape scenario, and a game scenario. When I work with the boys, when Ron's doing his work with the goalkeepers, we're looking at things that need to become unconscious in their mindset, in the way that they work. So we're very, very relentless in possession drills, in the way that they pass the ball, in the way that we keep the ball in scenarios. And again, you know, talking about level changes, when I first went in at Bev and did that, the amount of players that was like, we're doing the same thing every week. You know, I'm bored. Why are we doing the same thing every week? And there was a moment when things clicked, and exactly what we'd worked out in a training session came to fruition in a game. And the movement of the pivot and the way that the ball was played out to a wide man, and a number 9 was in position where he needed to be. And we came back in and had the conversation with the boys and said, don't ever get bored of doing the right things, because you've just shown right there that everything you've done on a Tuesday and Thursday has come to fruition, and it becomes unconscious. You just do it. And when a number of those lads started to click and realise that, yeah, you know, we can go out on a Saturday and we can enjoy ourselves, and we can be comfortable and confident in one-on-one situations, in playing out from the back if we have to, because they were drilled to do so. Because they had that scenario in training where we'll do it till you get it right. You know, training for me is just an extension of what you want to achieve on a Saturday. You know, we aren't going to turn up to training and play five-a-sides because we don't play five-a-sides on a Saturday. All right. I want to keep the ball and I want to work the ball out from the back, so we'll work on it on a Tuesday. I want to make sure that my number 9 is within, you know, the tram lines of the 6-yard box. So when we do our shooting drills, he don't move from it. You know, I don't want him coming out for a throw-in, so we'll work on that. And if we then get back into that scenario where we're in at half-time and we told him that was his job on the board and he hadn't done it, we can hold him to account for it. And it's just create, like I said, this is, when I use the word environment, this is all the things that these boys are going to buy into, because you won't get away with being average this year. You've got to do what I believe will make this club successful and get us to a point where we're looking up and thinking, you know, we're not 3 points off relegation, we're 3 points off the playoffs. And they're the types of moves that we can make if we get the buy-in right, because quality will get you in the door, but what you do when you're here will keep you here.
What will your attitude be to the discipline of players on the pitch? I'm talking about yellow cards, red cards, and we've got 1 or 2 players who take quite a number of those.
Not mention any names.
And I was present at the match when you were taking, and I thought the referee was right. So what is your view on players who are not, get too many yellow, too many, which weakens the side and sent off with 10 players?
That's the main point there. If it weakens the side, it becomes a problem. I think I will never drill passion out of anybody, and the way that somebody carries themselves. Sometimes, yes, you know, we need to make sure that we're doing things right and we're doing things that are right by the team. But I would never get to a point where I would drill somebody's passion out of them. A lot of the time, I think referees have got a lot to answer for, especially when they're being assessed and it's difficult and they make decisions that, you know, I pull my hair out about, and you're never going to get anything out of them. You know, they are what they are and they do what they do. I think what I tried to instill over the past few years is that if we do things right on the pitch, we shouldn't have to worry about that. You shouldn't be in a position where we have to worry about that. Let me be the guy that does that on the side of the pitch, because, you know, me being weakened and going over the side of a barrier is a little bit different to you being in a changing room. So I would like the boys to buy into that way of doing things again. I think we won the Fair Play Award the first year we was at Bev. We had no sendings off in the 2 years that I've been there. I couldn't give you numbers on yellow cards, but, you know, if boys are drilled in respect of the environment that we create and the discipline in the way that we do things, I can't expect maximum output from a boy on a Saturday if I'm not giving them it on a Tuesday and a Thursday. And that goes down to the quality of the equipment that we provide, the discipline in respect of, you know, the bibs are put back folded up, the balls are put, things like this are the small things that probably you guys don't see that will be instilled within this football club. You know, we trained on a 4G facility with Bev in the past few years, and if a ball goes over the fence, the boy goes and gets it. You know, it's not left, it's not lost. A management team's not going to go get it, you go get it yourself. And it's just those disciplining things that then start to transcend into the game, and it transcends into how we look as a club and how we hang our hat in the way that we do things is very important to me. Yes, there's going to be scenarios where people get sent off, and yes, there's going to be scenarios where people get yellow cards for discipline. That is what it is. But I think the way that we get these boys into my way of thinking, I would hope that the disciplined ones, the bad ones, we would lose. They wouldn't be happening. They shouldn't be happening.
I think taking up John's point, the one thing I'm disappointed about, as an ex-player and as an ex-referee, boo, I hear you say, cheap cards are the things that annoy me, because 2 cheap cards equals a red card. you know, it's this, it's kicking the ball away and things like that. Now,
The silly ones.
the decisions a referee has, they're easy for a referee. If boy kicks the ball away, it's a yellow card, no argument.
Yep.
So I think it's a passionate game, don't get me wrong, it is a passionate game at whatever level you're at.
And
But I think if that annoys me. Let's put it
yeah,
that way.
I understand that, Paul, and I think what I would say to that one is these boys will become moulded from me. I'm very calm in the way that I do things now. I'm very analytical in the way that I do things, and the way that we set our training, our match day experience, everything about it. I'm very relaxed, and I want that to transcend through the team because you know, again, Brett, unbelievably passionate guy, the way he is, the way he played the game, that then becomes mirrored through his players, you know, and I think that's very similar. And that's nothing against Brett, that's the way that the guy plays football, and I've played football with him, you know, and sometimes you need that,
Okay.
you know, you do need that. I think I'm as polar opposite as that could be. Yes, I'm majorly passionate, but I can take a step back, especially now that I've stopped playing. I can take a step back and I can think about things and I can analyse things before we make a decision on what we do. And that's been mirrored with our playing staff in the last 2 years. You know, those boys have done things a certain way. You know, we've never embroiled ourselves in the other side of the game, you know, the dark art side of the game. One, because we haven't needed to, but those boys know that, you know, if we're in a big game, I've taken lads off for having a yellow card. I've taken boys off the field after 55 minutes for having a yellow card. I've spoken to our skipper at half time and said, you've got 5 minutes and we'll be taking you off because you've got a yellow card. Because it was that important to us that we didn't want him missing for 3, or we didn't want him missing for 1. So I would like this playing squad to become a mirror of what we are as a management team. That's not no passion, you know, it's just very...
Well, it's a passionate game, I
yeah,
accept
it's
that.
very drilled in the way that we do it.
Okay, cheers for that.
Could I also say, going back to Paul, is the most important thing is you don't talk back to refs. Whatever a ref says, you just get on with the game. And that's where we were disciplined many years ago, not to turn around and say anything to the ref, even though you said to him when he's walking the other direction, you must always turn around and just accept what they say, because at the end of the day, as Paul says, it's just a cheap card and you'll get sent off eventually for it. Because a lot of people will just verbal back at the referee, hug around the referee, he's not going to change his mind, the referee decision is final, and I think that is what at the end of the day, the most important part about the game is to make sure you've got the discipline in place, coming down from the manager all the way down at the team, to say you don't say anything to the referee. Even though he's a what's name, you turn around and say, okay, fine, just get on with your game. Because that's a better way of handling it all. Let the other side turn around and get into trouble, but yourself just walk away from it, and I think that's the most important part that comes down from the manager, right the way down for the whole squad, to turn around and say discipline is so important nowadays, you don't bother to have a word with the referee because he's not going to change his mind. If the captain does it, fine. But then the rest of you just walk away, and that's the way it should be done. That's what I think anyway.
I couldn't agree more. It's the way that we've done things. I've been the guy that takes the flak. I've been the guy that'll have the conversation, you know, and I want my players to concentrate on playing football, you know, but I want them to be a mirror of the environment that we're creating. They've got to be that, because they're the boys that walk out onto the pitch and represent this club, and we're creating that squad to represent the club in a mirror image of what I want it to look like. You know, and this is where I'm saying, you know, there's been boys that have left the club. If they've not bought into that, that's fine. That is absolutely fine, because we will create the squad of everybody that does buy into that, and the quality will come with that, you know, and the coaching set, all of those fine margins that get squeezed come from the whole environment changing and the way that they're looked after.
The questions are wrong, really.
Ron doesn't speak.
Oh. Hitch was an absolute revelation last year.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure many of us didn't imagine at the beginning of the season we'd all be voted for him as player of the season. It's an absolute revelation. Can he get better?
Everybody can get better. Not just players, coaches, managers. Everybody can get better. Before I answer that question, I would like just to put some fears to bed. Don't be fooled by my youthful looks. You asked that? No. Seriously, I worked with Hitch pre-season last year. I knew Hitch at BA Systems before I retired. We worked close in hand. So I knew Hitch. Hitch knew me. Tomo gave us the opportunity. We threw open the training, pre-season training to Hitch, and Hitch can progress. Do not expect Hitch next season, okay, to perform like he did this season.
Why?
Purely and simply because what he has in front of him and the way in which what he has in front of him is actually drilled and disciplined, he won't need to. Okay, it's not the. Having said that, and to answer a question that came very early on in the chat, communication is key. Tomo mentioned he likes a centre half to talk. I cannot abide goalkeepers that are quiet. Hitch is a good keeper. He will continue to be a good keeper. Why? Because he will get some dedicated coaching. He will work harder than he has before, with benefit. He'll also be pushed. And any player that plays on that park for us, for you, will actually have to earn their position. We dropped a quality player, goalkeeper, last season because he, quite frankly, wasn't performing. He had a bit of a dip. We all have them. All players have them. And we brought in an academy keeper. He wasn't 19, he was 18, just 18, and he performed. And all of a sudden, funny old thing, the first team select keeper we had, his game went there. But it had to, because the young lad was saying, if you want this shirt back, you perform. So, in answer to the question, yes, Hitch will get better, but don't. What we're putting in front of him, I hope, if my goalkeeper next season is Player of the Year, I'm going to be asking him questions. You won't have to ask them, because I'll be asking them.
Throw me under the bus, hasn't he? Just to add to that, I think Hitchy as a person is a superb lad, and we gave Hitchy that opportunity when, you know, we mentioned COVID shut down the leagues where you've got an enclosed ground. We could continue playing. I reached out to Hitchy and said, look, if you want to keep fit, Ron puts on sessions specifically for goalkeepers. I know you've not got that opportunity. Come down and do it. And the kid bought in, you know, and to me, you don't forget those things. And when I talk about, like, to Pete, with the disparity in where the pay brackets have been, the output from that lad is outstanding, and everything that he brings to the club, it's at heart. You know, I look at 4, 5, 6 lads specifically where I think, you know, they will know instantly the way I want to do things, and this club means so much to them. Those boys will get such a lift out of these changes. But Hitchy specifically, having that opportunity, if we don't play on a Tuesday, to have, you know, a dedicated goalkeeper coach Tuesday, Thursday. If we play on a Tuesday, it's happening on a Thursday. You know, so it's there, and there's an opportunity for him. And I don't think there's too much more to say on that. I think Ron's already had conversations with the structure of the bigger club, and the opportunity for goalkeeper. It's a rarity. You know, Ron is a rarity. Having somebody that I can rely on to specifically work with goalkeepers is phenomenal. So to open that up to the wider club is great. We did exactly the same at Bev. You know, we would train at 8 PM and Ron was there at 6:30 with junior teams, and that buy-in from everybody is just fantastic. But it will only benefit what my goal is, to make sure that things out there are better, and Hitchy will massively benefit from that. I didn't say that. I said benefit from it. That's up to Hitchy.
Can you stop him running out?
Ron, listen. Ron's the go-to guy for that. He can analyse what Hitchy does. Any goalkeeper that we've got, he can work on specifics. You know, we talk about the young goalkeeper that we brought in at Bev. He was incredibly raw. You know, he was a great goalkeeper, but he was incredibly raw, and he was playing county level football. You know, he was playing county level football, and in 2 years, he won a league title at Bev and solidified himself as a first choice goalkeeper with, you know, nine odd clean sheets in 26 games. You know, so the opportunity is there for these guys to improve, and again, it's all about buy-in. You know, and if they buy into that way of doing things. I've already had a really good conversation with Hitchy about Ron, and obviously he's known Ron anyway previously. And he's all over that. You know, the buzz that you get from him through knowing that he's got that opportunity, you know, it's only going to give him a better chance.
And he's not going to run out. He's not got so much work to do.
You'll regret saying that.
He just gets like sometimes.
Are we nearly done? So I want to watch the penalties in this round.
Now you also know what his release was.
Of course.
What's your views on loan players?
I'm confident in. I would take loan players if they improve us. You've always got to remember with loan, don't fall in love with a loan player. You know that whole philosophy. Don't fall in love with a loan player. They're coming here for a reason. They're coming here for a reason, and if that benefits us, then yes, I buy into that. And again, I think the environment for them, if they need that first team football, then that's a good opportunity for them. What I've spoke to Pete about, and I think there could be opportunities for us. Scarborough's promotion is something that I think could benefit us, and a good link with a club like that is something that could benefit us. So I'm open to it. I know that there's player disgruntlement sometimes if those are the guys that miss out. But at the end of the day, the betterment of the club and the progression of the club is what's most important. So I'm open to it, absolutely.
Anyone else? Are we almost?
No, I just want to say I'm looking forward to the enhanced relationship within the club at all levels. That's something that, with respect, has been missing over the years. We've had a reserve team and this, but that I look forward to.
I mean, listen, I've been at this club for, on 3 different occasions since 2010, and since I've been here, there's never been a relationship, in my opinion, ever.
Probably better than I have, Mike.
So there's never been a relationship, and what we've done in relation to the juniors and the academy lads coming through at Bev is very easily replicated here. Yes, there's a few different dynamics, such as the travel. If the first team boys are going to train in Hull, but I believe with the right buy-in we can get around that. And then the other dynamic of the first team playing Northern Prem football and the reserves being in the Humber Prem 1 is a huge gulf. But again, I see that as a work in progress where they're just being around the club. It's a club mentality. If they want to train and they want to better themselves and they're local boys, then that's got to be a benefit to the club as a whole.
Thank you.